Okay, thank you very much. Remember Fonzie? His sole reason for existing was to be cool. Look at that guy. He could fix anything by whacking it with his fist. He was a ladies' man to the extreme, the definition of hip. And then he jumped over a shark on water skis, wearing a leather jacket. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that jumping over a shark on water skis isn't impressive, but that's not what the Fonz does. The Fonz is designed to be cool, and he went too far with this gimmick. He jumped the shark, man. I spoke that a lot quicker than I did in practice. So this is the absurd moment that jumping the shark entered our vernacular. Usually it's that point in an established long-running TV series, like in this case Happy Days, where it changes in a significant manner in an attempt to stay fresh. Ironically, that moment makes the viewers realize the show has finally run out of ideas. It's reached its peak, and it'll never be the same again. It's not just TV shows that jump the shark, though. Food has jumped the shark. Google jumped the shark. Facebook has apparently jumped the shark. Apple has jumped the shark a couple of times. Even innovation itself has apparently jumped the shark. And speaking of cool dudes, everyone's favorite innovation guru, Clayton Christensen, argued in his book, The Innovator's Dilemma, that unless action is taken, companies will find themselves getting better and better at things that people want less and less. And when that happens, innovating your products won't help. You have to innovate your business model. So I'm Phil Cockrell. I head up the user experience team at Serato and have done for 6.5 years. We make the world's best music software that controls the world's best parties from right here in Auckland. I've been doing UX for over 10 years now and was taught most of what I know at Optimal Experience, RIP. Today, I want to pull together a couple of simple theories in the hope that you'll go away and put your product strategy under the microscope. We'll start with some theory on when to make a new thing, and then use some Serato examples to talk about making the right thing rather than making the thing right. A warning. There's a bit of business theory coming up that makes me a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm going to use that to help frame the discussion. Usually I just recommend building out your best guess and low fidelity and user testing the shit out of it, but that's not really what this talk is about. This talk is about before you get to user testing. So, how do you know when you've jumped the proverbial shark? And how do you not do that? You may be familiar with Everett Rogers' 1962 theory, the diffusion of innovations. It's pretty straightforward. Customers are grouped by their speed of adoption. On the far left, you have your early adopters and your innovators, and they're right on the cutting edge. They'll take risk with your product because it's part of their social status to do so. The theory goes, you need to move past these hype beats towards the early to late majority in order for your product to reach a scale that's sustainable. And if you do that, and you get into the mass market, you'll start to see that rapid expansion phase. It'll shoot up and you'll be reaping all the benefits of all your hard work. But as your product becomes embedded, growth slows down and eventually dries out, and that's what they call an S-curve. The shape is like an S. In the maturity phase, finding new users is much harder. You're making incremental gains, incremental improvements to your product that aren't really pushing the needle in any significant way. You're reaching saturation, and decline may even be imminent. Products that have followed the S-curve into obscurity include such heavy hitters as the fax machine, the non-smart mobile phone, tapes, CDs, MP3s, MySpace, Facebook. Products have life cycles, and part of a life cycle is death. When it starts to get really tricky to keep customers, you've really got two options if you want to keep growing. A, try and find an innovation to your product that'll kick off a new expansion phase. Or B, try something new. Now, you should absolutely try and improve your product first and foremost. It's much less risky than starting something new. Run workshops with your extreme users and try and find those little gold nuggets that'll help you kick off a new expansion idea. Research competitors. prototype, user test, but I assume all that's just a given to most of this group. And that's, once again, not really what this talk is about. This talk is about doing something new. So let's relook at our S-curve, or the life cycle of your product from infancy into maturity. So the time to start thinking about jumping off the sky is before things start going down. If you get to thinking, what can I do to kickstart this growth? You may have waited too long. Strike while your cash cow product is healthy and earning, and use it to offset the cost of jumping to a new S-curve. What you're trying to do is essentially build up a suite of products. If you had multiple products, you'd have multiple S-curves. You'd be staying ahead of the risks in the marketplace and spreading your risks over a few different products. Have 2 S-curves. Shit, have 3. Okay, so now we're getting to the examples soon. But to guide the discussion, I'd like to introduce you to one more framework that many people will probably be familiar with. And we'll try to make this as simple as we can. The universe of possibilities breaks down into what you make and who you sell to. Are you targeting new or existing customers? And are you making something new or not? Welcome to Ansoff's Matrix. It's massively oversimplified, but it gives us a really easy way to talk about what to do next. Each corner of the quadrant has an associated product strategy. Let's start with market penetration in the bottom left. An existing product in an existing market. Now, that's a defensive strategy. It's being better at things that you already do. At Serato, this is just everyday development, from replacing our GUI tech or redesigning elements of our UI, to implementing user-requested improvements or things that our competitors love and their customers love. Sorry. This is a risk-averse approach, and it's also often the default option. So I'm going to call it, for the purposes of this talk, settling. It's not pushing yourself to innovate. It's being comfortable with what you've got and striving to get more value out of it. So settling has its place, especially in a competitive market like where Serato plays, where competition is constantly looking for incremental gains in their core offering, and to try and improve you and to try and keep ahead. But because you're going deeper and deeper into the same product, there's a real risk of getting stuck on the S-curve. So let's leave that alone for the purposes of this talk. Market development, in the bottom right, is introducing new people to things you already do. It's a focus on expansion by increasing your market size, rather than creating new products. Marketing and advertising plays a huge role in the expansion approach, in the market development approach. As you seek out new customers, market development can be as much about changing the perception of your product as it is about actually making any changes to your product. So Serato is famous in hip-hop culture. Kanye West raps about us. Scratch DJs rave about the authentic feel of our low-latency system. But there's a lot more music out there in which our competitors' customers are more entrenched. So in order to make our product more enticing to, for example, electronic DJs, we've implemented a raft of new features over the years. From beat jumping, where you move forwards and backwards in a song, staying in time, and the crowd doesn't even know that you're moving, to key analysis or harmonic mixing tools, so your long, smooth house mixes sound even more seamless. We've worked on hardware a lot, like improving support for CDJs, which is the electronic DJ's tool of choice when they're mixing. Or working with partners to bring new kind of targeted pieces of equipment to market. Some have moved the needle a little, and some have not. Mostly what happens is that our hip-hop guys find new ways to incorporate the new features into their beat juggling sets. We've developed geographically and translated our whole UI into 7 languages to pursue both emerging market customers in Asia and South America and the more techno-entrenched European DJs. Just a quick side note on translation, don't take this lightly. It's serious commitment and is a serious ongoing cost, from retranslating for updates to translation of all marketing and support channels. Now, I'm not saying it's not a good idea to support those that don't speak English, but it should just be done with eyes wide open, especially in this day when Google Translate is so powerful. In order to develop our market, we've significantly changed our business model and introduced new products in the beginner space. So for a long time, Serato got by being the professional DJ software of choice. DJs chanted from the rafters, "Serato must be earned," because they'd spent the time to master our software and the mixing skills required to rock a party. However, as competition increased and changes in technology lowered the barrier to entry, we had to adjust to stay ahead of the game. We introduced an upgrade path and worked with hardware partners to position DJ equipment at all tiers of the market. We introduced subscription to take the sting out of the upfront cost and chase after that millennial dollar. And it's quickly come to make up a significant percentage of our upgrade revenue. And we've invested in relationships with DJ schools and produced a lot of content to learn how to DJ. Just this year, we've removed the need for DJ hardware at all, meaning anyone with a laptop can now use Serato DJ for free. Go ahead, get into DJing yourself. It's free. There's no barrier to entry. Now, you may be thinking that all those things just sound like standard incremental changes to your product. And I would agree. So I call this good business. Because that's what it is. It's knowing your product well and especially where it lacks. It's understanding the landscape of people outside your existing customers and pushing your product to work for them. The thing is, if you lose focus of your existing customers too much, you're starting to run some real risks of shark jumping. And we've done this a few times. You could go chasing new users and design something that alienates your existing ones. So there's a bit of risk in there. But you know what's really risky? Diversification. I mean, a new technology in a new market, you're not leaning on any of your intellectual property, relationships, or customer goodwill. According to HBR research, there's a 75 to 95% chance that new products in a market that you don't know well will fail. I guess that's why startup percentages, success percentages are so low. So Serato's done this twice. Once it worked, and it changed DJing forever. So Serato originally made a plugin for production software called Pitch in Time that could speed up and slow down music without degrading the quality of the audio. It was world class. Our customers were mostly Hollywood's biggest film studios, and they used it to match the music to the video after shoot rather than painstakingly getting the scene lengths right during shoot or in editing. We knew nothing about DJing and had no DJs as customers, but recognized a new technology and a latent need. DJs needed their back saving from carrying around all those crates of vinyl. We jumped the S-curve from the studio to the DJ booth, and it introduced the company to a whole new wave of customers and a whole new growth trajectory. Turns out, it's come to define the company. We tried again a few years ago to jump from the DJ booth into the pocket, and we released an iPhone app targeted at consumers called Serato Pyro. Now, I spoke about the development phase at the first UX Homegrown. It was a great product to be a part of, and we followed a really great user-centered design process. But we went for a home run, trying to invent new tech in order to chase after a new market. We had a great launch, and the product got favorable reviews, but it confused our existing customer base, and it spread us too thin. We tried to monetize new customers, and we never quite got there. The silver lining was that we were able to introduce new people to the Serato brand, and some of these have progressed to become real DJs. So Serato Pyro is a great product. I still use it and recommend you go download it from the App Store, but it wasn't financially successful. It's free, by the way. Cool. So as evidenced by Scratch Live, it's totally possible to succeed with a diversification strategy. Pop culture's business heroes make their names doing this. Your Richard Bransons, your Elon Musks. But it's fraught with peril. So I won't take anything away from these entrepreneurial titans, but without deep pockets and the ability to afford a few misses, you really need to be in the right place at the right time, which just sounds a little bit too much like luck to me. You know what isn't luck? Knowing your customers. In the top left, we have product development. This is where you leverage your most important asset, your users. You don't focus on finding new users for the same product. You take your existing customers on the journey with you by creating new things that will improve their lives. At its core, this is about creating relationships with your customers that extend beyond a single product. I call it grow with your customers. At Serato, this means knowing our DJs better than anyone else. And the good news for you lot is that the tools you learn as a UX professional can be gainfully employed in following this approach. Now, this wouldn't be an inspirational talk if I didn't mention Apple, and I'd argue that this is where your boy Steve Jobs operated. Apple jumped the S-curve a few times, from the computer to the phone to the iPad to the watch. The thing is, and then also from iTunes to the App Store to Apple Music and everything in between. The thing is, they took their customer on the journey the whole way, and they built an ecosystem that the products had worked together. They leveraged the relationship they had to create an even stickier product suite. Serato Remote was a brand new product category aimed at our existing customers. It's growing with our customers in its purest form. Our software could do all these great things that our customers didn't have tactile control over. Because as we added features, DJs with traditional turntable and mixer setups couldn't access them because they didn't have the knobs or the buttons on their setups. But at the same time, our users had these high-tech touch screens in their living rooms. Serato Remote was released over 5 years ago, and it's still ticking away nicely. So DJing and making music are heavily intertwined. We've heard again and again from our DJs comments like, "I know how to rock a dance floor, but I want to be an artist." DJs tell us the only way to headline international acts is to make tunes. Being the best at DJing alone isn't enough. So production is the next logical step for a DJ. And DJing is a way for a producer to get their beats out. They're both part of the same customer journey, but Serato hasn't traditionally offered any production products. So when we decided to enter the market, we asked ourselves 2 questions. 1, what are DJs good at that transfers into production? 2, what is Serato good at that we can leverage in a product? By answering this, we hope to find the product that would bring our existing customers on the journey with us into production. And the answer came from understanding the nuances of the type of music that our DJs wanted to make, and developing the simplest tool we could to help them create. There's exceptions, of course, but many DJs don't really know music theory. They don't have the skills or the confidence to lay down a melody, and playing chord progressions on a piano is like another language to them. What they do know, and what they're very good at, is songs. They know what certain bits of certain songs do to people on the dance floor. They know samples. So when a DJ starts thinking about making music, they're thinking about what they know best, sampling, turning something old into something new. Lucky for us, sampling's pretty hot right now. Just look in the pop charts, you'll find it littered with hip-hop tracks made from other people's music. But sampling is hard. It's editing audio. It's slow, and it's precise, and it's manual. But it doesn't have to be, and that's what Serato Sample is. It took a DJ approach to performing sample cutting and dumped it into the music-making workflow, with the best quality pitch, time stretching, pitch adjusting, and key analysis tech in the business. This new approach to sampling has allowed our DJs to dip their toes into the production world with a comfortable first step. There's still a lot to learn, but that initial creative process is really smoothed over, and they don't get overwhelmed by that foreign interface. They can stay in flow. So, what's the difference between the Serato Sample and the Serato Pyro experience? The main thing for me is that Serato Sample, we knew exactly who our customers were, and we made exactly what they needed, even though it wasn't a DJ product. we grew with our customers. For Serato Pyro, we tried to create a profitable new S-curve, but all we managed to do was to build out a free tier, basically. I think this is because we didn't do the groundwork to know exactly who the customer we were making it for was. We hadn't identified the gaping hole in their lives that they would pay to improve. We built it as much because it was cool tech as because we were chasing after a new market. Every time we user-tested Pyro, we got really positive feedback on the interactions, and people told us that it was a pretty cool idea. But we hadn't isolated why someone who wasn't a DJ would pay it for it in the first place. It was an expensive lesson, and we're lucky that we could recoup some of the cost by introducing a whole lot of new people to the Serato brand. Okay, so it would be rude of me if I didn't leave you with a few thoughts. 1, don't jump the shark. It's such a sad way to go out. So I want to be clear that I'm not in any way suggesting that effort spent continually improving your product is wasted. Incremental improvement with a focus on customer experience is a fundamental competitive differentiator. There's a sentence for you. What I am suggesting is that if growth is starting to taper off, don't force your product to be something it's not, unless you have evidence that your customers are no longer who they were. Jump the S-curve. Remember what your boy Clayton said. Companies will find themselves getting better and better at things that people want less and less. If that's the case, recognize it and be willing to try something new. Be willing to walk away from something that got you where you are. Tenderly remember the good times, but don't hold on to them until they hurt you. Aim to build a resilient, cohesive product strategy with multiple levers to pull. Maximize that expansion phase of your S-curve. And 3, grow with your customers. When you do decide to do something new, use what you know to your advantage. It's kind of obvious, I know, but it kind of goes against the prevalent pop culture template of a disruptive entrepreneur. What you know could be your customers, or it could be your tech. From my personal experience, creating products with and for your customers is how you build a cohesive product strategy. Ask yourself, what is the next product that will impact our customers' lives? Once you work that out, spend the time to seamlessly integrate it with your existing product suite. If you add new tech as part of that, you're creating more IP and adding value. You're adding value while looking after your customers at the same time. An additional bonus is that people will discover your company through the new things that you've created and work their way back to your original products. Thanks for your time. I hope... Oh. Let's go one more. I just want to say that I hope my oversimplified approach to tackling something as complicated as product strategy will leave you wondering what new products your customers might like from you.